Hello and welcome to Nonny, Yanga's flagship talk show where we discuss all the hot topics. Today we'll be discussing the psychological phenomenon known as imposter syndrome. We'll be exploring why so many of us have felt this way and how we can overcome it. Joining me today are broadcast journalists Afia Adam and Lape Banjo. Welcome, ladies. Nice to see you for the first time.
I know. It's lovely to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
The psychological phenomenon known as imposter syndrome reflects the belief that you are incompetent or inadequate at your job, despite evidence indicating that you are sufficiently skilled and at most times very successful. Victims often believe they have succeeded purely by luck and have a constant fear of being exposed as a fraud. A recent study has found that 70% of people experience these imposter feelings at some point in their lives. Why do so many of us question our ability at work? Lape, fake it till you make it. Do you think this kind of imposter syndrome can be put into that bracket, or is this something more serious?
I think for me personally, I think it is something that's a lot more serious, but people kind of downplay it because we don't know that it exists. And I think for me personally, my personal experience of it has been definitely in the working environment and also in academic environments, which people completely forget about. For someone like me, I went to school in inner city London. And then afterwards, I went to like a private boarding school, which I was completely...
Wow, the contrast.
Yeah, the contrast was wild. It was a complete fish out of water. And for me, it was more like, oh, I don't really understand how I've got here. I don't understand if I deserve to be here or if my achievements are, valid enough to be here. And as a result, I felt very, very, exactly what the imposter syndrome describes. I felt like I was a fraud. Like I felt like I didn't need to be in that environment, or I shouldn't have been in that environment. And again, I mean, a lot of the effects are, racial divisions, class. I mean, there's a lot of things there that
there's context and depth.
There's a lot of depth to it. And I think for anyone to downplay it will be quite foolish, because it's quite serious and people don't realise that they're going through it. And I was saying to Afia earlier that a lot of it is to do with your mental health as well. I mean, how you value yourself and how you validate yourself as well. So I think, for me, it's something that is a lot more serious and should be, brought to light.
Which is why we're discussing it. I remember, Afia, when we were researching it, I was like, gosh, tick the box, the box. I've got that symptom, I've got that symptom. Sometimes it is nice, like Lape is saying, you bring something into the fruition, into the forefront, and you can discuss it. Do you think imposter syndrome is normal? Are we making, or studies and psychologists making it seem like a bigger deal than normal?
Oh gosh, it's absolutely not a bigger deal than normal. And I'm not surprised that this statistic there was 70% of people think they have felt this way. And I've definitely felt this way. You said you felt this way of yourself. We all have around this table. And it's a real thing, but I do think it's a thing that affects women perhaps more than men. Yeah. Men just seem to kind of like go into things and have this assumption that they can do it. I also agree with you when you said it's a racial thing. Sometimes you go into workplaces where you are the only black woman. And so you have a sense of, hang on, should I be here? Should I really be doing this job? Am I meant to be here? How did I get here? Am I worth it? And you really have a sense of...
Yes, if you're asking me.
Thank you. But you have a sense that, I don't know what I'm doing
You're not
here.
Good enough.
How did I get here? And I've been in jobs where you started off, and obviously when you start a job, you're not going to be very good. And I remember working somewhere and I was absolutely terrible. You know what I'm talking about. And, I did get to a point where I was much better at it. But even now I still think to myself, and all the
doubt
things
yourself
I do,
and question yourself.
At some point someone's going to find out. Maybe I'm not a real journalist, even though I am.
You are a real journalist. It's interesting we talk about work, because it does say the industry sector which reported the highest incidence of imposter syndrome is the creative arts and the design
Absolutely. I completely
sector.
agree with that.
And you talked about race, Lape. Kind of expand on that. Absolutely. Why would you say it's a race thing?
I think we downplay the race thing a lot. And obviously, I used
not a nonny.
I think, the fact that, I used to, I've lived my whole life in London, born and bred, and I've only just recently moved back to Nigeria. And it's only in Nigeria that I'm not a black woman, because everybody around me is the same and everybody doesn't pick on something that makes me different. And like you were saying earlier, I mean, anywhere you go in the world, someone's going to have a problem with you because you're black and you're also a woman. So it's like a bit of a double whammy. But it's how you make that, those two things translate into something more positive. And I'll get onto that later about how we can actually make the imposter syndrome a lot more of a positive
Flip
thing.
it on its head.
Absolutely. So for me personally, the reason why I experienced it a lot in the workplace was because you know, especially in the creative industry, because there's not that many of us, let's be honest.
there
And,
aren't.
you know, for me, I won't say the name of the organisation, but a very, very big organisation in the creative industry. It was like my first foot in the door, and I got in there, and that was the first time I could say to myself that I felt this experience at my most. You know, I was the only black girl there, I was very young, so there was also the age thing as well.
Did you feel ostracised, or did you feel like a fraud? Did you feel like, I don't deserve to be here? Or did you feel like people are not accepting of me being
Do you
here?
know what? I think it was a mixture of both. And I don't think, you know, anyone would kind of ostracize me intentionally or, you know, quite, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
But I did feel like that. I did feel ostracized because I didn't feel anyone that I could relate to or anybody that I could, you know, look to as a mentor or that kind of thing, or be completely honest with me. And at the same time, I just didn't feel adequate. You know, I felt like whilst I was there, that, you know, this was a fluke. I literally just got this by the skin of my teeth. And I didn't feel like, you know, that I could... I mean, it was a big organisation. It was something that was something for me to be very proud of. But at the same time, I just felt, oh, am I doing the right thing? You know, I mean, if I come in late, or am I going to lose my job because I've come in late?
Of course.
I mean, there's so many different things. There's so many different elements to it. And even doing the job itself, I felt like, am I doing this properly? Am I a proper journalist, like you were saying? I mean, have I just got here because I'm trying to tick a quota, you know? And for me, it was constantly going through my head, and which is why I say it's definitely a mental health thing as well.
Yes.
Because it's that constant conversation in your head as to, are you valid? Are you adequate enough to be here? And actually, when I say flipping it on its head, is that actually I ended up getting recognised for that, because what you end up doing is you end up working 10 times harder than everyone else.
Of course, that's
So
what they
prove
tell us to
yourself.
do when we're
Yeah.
younger. But do you think, you know, talking about mental health and talking about Lape's experience, Sophia, do you think that affects your quality of work in a negative way? Can you kind of then, you know, when they say you kind of, it's self-inflicted, so you then start getting really paranoid, and then you then start isolating yourself and you start acting up, and because you're kind of expecting them to treat you a certain way.
I think that's the personal decision that you have to make.
Yeah.
But I'll let you answer. Go ahead.
See, I think whenever I felt that way, I think it's affected my work in a positive way, because like you said, you worked twice as hard. You're trying to prove yourself all the time. So sometimes you'll stay late, you'll do extra, but you're always trying to be the best because you feel like you aren't the best already. And I think in the creative industries, I'm not surprised that it's more prevalent, because there's no way of really quantifying or measuring.
Sometimes
what
it's
we
an
do.
opinion, isn't it, of whether or not someone thinks you're the best
Because
thing.
if you're a surgeon, you can either do heart surgery or you
not.
can't.
Yeah.
The person either survives or they don't. But in journalism, you can be good, great, okay,
Yeah.
rubbish,
Yeah.
brilliant. It's all a matter of opinion.
Yes.
So it is how good you are, only how good as you think you are, right? And if you don't think you're good, then you're always going to be stuck in this cycle. This, like you said, a mental health thing where you're just going to be there thinking, I'm rubbish. And whenever I have felt that way, you do work twice as hard. And at the end of the day, I've still
but
come
that's
out on
good, because
top.
you guys, we're all successful journalists. But what about, you know, the young black boy, the young black girl that doesn't have that confidence, doesn't get that confidence at home? I think class and education is really important.
Really
You know,
important.
especially if you're going into the creative industries where, let's be honest, it's kind of as white as snow and very middle class.
And if you can't see yourself, and I think that's probably why, as black women, we might feel it more. If you're the head of a FTSE 500 company as a black woman and you don't see anyone else that looks like yourself, you're going to feel like an imposter. You're going to get that sense of imposter syndrome. If young people coming through the industry can't see people like themselves in it and they get to that position, then of course they're going to be really likely to feel
You're
that
right,
way.
and of course, even if they do see themselves, it's a class thing. You know, Lape, you said you went to a private school.
Yeah, no, it
You
is
know,
a class thing.
The stark class difference between someone that didn't go to that school is another thing, but we'll continue this after the break. Still to come, we continue to explore imposter syndrome, and we ask, can it be a positive thing? See you after the break. Welcome back to Nonny. Now, the late, great Maya Angelou has previously spoken about her fear of being found out as a fraud despite all her accolades. Research has shown that 2/3 of women in the UK suffer from imposter syndrome at work. Though men aren't totally immune to the feeling, great emphasis has been placed on women constantly seeking validation in the workplace despite being more than competent. Do women put too much pressure on themselves to be perfect? Do we, Afia?
1,000% in every which way, from the way we look to the way we raise our children to what we do at work. We put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect. And let's just be honest, we put pressure on other women to be perfect as well. We do it to ourselves. We absolutely do it to ourselves. And I really think when we're talking about imposter syndrome, you talked about it in an academic way, but you do see all these, you know, mum bloggers on social media, and they've like cut up
hashtag mummy goals, hashtag relationship
cut up
goals,
loads of vegetables, and she's got like a flat stomach.
And what it does is that actually makes women that aren't doing everything seem very inadequate.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean,
and therefore imposter syndrome comes in, because you think, if I don't have one baby on my hip while doing a spinning class, while chopping vegetables, while making my husband
Going
this
to the
amazing
gym.
meal, I'm at the gym with the baby on my hip. It's still taking place in the gym. Like, if I'm not doing all these things while my child's in private school, while I've got like a 4x4 in the driveway, then I'm not doing well as a mother. And that's, you know, it creeps in motherhood. I think to myself, I haven't really got a plan. I don't know what Naima's having for dinner tonight.
It's very worrying, especially, you know, Lapa, you did talk about education, and a lot of our viewers are young. We have young daughters. Do you worry about young girls and how they feel about, you know, constantly achieving and being put under so much pressure, not just from society, but sometimes from inside the home?
Definitely. I think, I mean, let's be honest, we're all African on the table. We're put on pressure from the second, you know, we're given birth to. You must be high achievers. You must be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and, you know, you must do well. I think genuinely that pressure already puts you in a weird position as soon as you get into the education system. And then when you don't achieve, you seem almost like a failure. And then when you do achieve, I mean, you know, even if it's a fluke, you just feel as though, you know, how did I get here? Am I going to be able to maintain this?
And that's where the imposter syndrome comes in, because you kind of feel like this was a one-off.
And then, you know, you're told to high achieve and then go on to Oxford or Cambridge. And then when you are given that opportunity, which is why I personally feel like a lot of the times we don't see that diversity, because once you are given that opportunity, you second guess yourself all the time. You feel like, one, I'm not the same class as all these people. And also, can I maintain the consistency of how well I'm doing? I mean, I get an A star tomorrow. Will I get an A star next week? Will I get an A star next year? And it's almost like, did I get this out of merit and out of hard work, or was it just a good day?
Do you think that's... It's funny because we've all experienced it, and I'm sure most of our viewers would have as well, but is that normal? Is that inevitable as a black woman living in the UK?
It shouldn't be. It absolutely shouldn't be. But it does feel like it does affect a lot of us. And it's like we've all said, you just feel like you've got somewhere by luck, that it was a good day, that you shouldn't really be there. And I think that's something that's been drummed into us, possibly because we're told we've got to work twice as hard, you've got to do the better than everybody else. It's kind of implied that you maybe won't get to the places that you should, and when you do get to the places you should, because you work twice as hard, you're like, gosh, should I even be here at all? That's
really interesting. So if the majority of us, and not just black women, because it's 80%, 70%, is it then an ingenuine feeling? It's just a kind of myth? Or is there something genuine in it? We spoke about mental health. Is this a chemical imbalance?
Ooh, I don't know. I wouldn't go. I have no science background, so I wouldn't go that far. But what I will say is, in terms of the mental health, especially for women, and I'm hammering on women because I feel like you said earlier, you know, in our day-to-day life, we put, you know, pressure on ourselves anyway. We have pressure to look good. We have pressure to, you know, achieve, especially when you're in a male-dominated industry or just in an industry anyway. You always have to, or especially societies where women are, you know, second-class citizens. So there's always that underlying effect of, you know, I have to do better than I should do already. And I think for women, purely, this is real. This is definitely real for women. Yes, there are men that experience this, and that must come into, you know, I think more of a classism debate and that kind of thing. But I think with women, we tick all the boxes: class, gender, race, and I think it all just fits in that, you know, it is something that's real. And I'm sure a lot of women will feel this as we're talking about this. Actually,
I'm sure a lot of women do, as I did when I was researching it. How do we overcome it? How have you personally overcome it and said, actually, no, you know, I've got that job, that's my position. This guy is not coming in to take my role. Is it an everyday thing?
I think with me personally, it's come with age. So the longer I've been in my career, the more I realise.
Confidence.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I got that first job, got the second job, got the third, the fourth, the fifth. Actually, maybe
the 25th. Give us a chance, Sophia.
Maybe this is actually my job. This is actually my career, and I've got so far or not so far because I am good at what I do. It's a quiet confidence, I think, for me personally, that's come with age. And also, sometimes you just have to validate yourself. I am here for a reason. I should be in this place. I have a right to be here because I'm good at what I do and my best is good enough.
Imposter syndrome is said to not only be natural, but also a sign of success. Evidence has shown that those who have a tendency for the syndrome are driven to perfection and are therefore most likely to achieve their goals. Is this supposed insecurity and self-doubt actually a road to personal growth and development? Well, if we've all suffered from it and we're kind of working in our industry, could it, you know, be a sign of success?
I think so, because I think, like I said earlier on, if you have, or when I felt this imposter syndrome, I've worked twice as hard, I've done the most, you know, done more to try and prove myself. And that's probably pushed me into a higher position, to another job, to here, to there. So I think it can be a sign of success, and it can be a really good way to grow and develop in your role. I'm not saying that everybody should feel this way, because nobody should feel that way. Nobody should feel that they only got to a position by luck or as a fluke or whatever.
They're going to get an email, a resignation.
You know, and they're just bluffing.
But
yeah, I think it can lead to some good personal development, and it can lead you to push yourself, but you need to push yourself in a positive way and not feel negative about yourself or your career.
I mean, in my case, I definitely think it's something that you can translate into success. I mean, I've taken that experience on several occasions, and, you know, it's fine to work, you know, twice as hard as anybody else, because someone will recognize it. And even if they don't, you feel, you know, more accomplished when you do. And it kind of reverses that imposter syndrome naturally, because what happens is, you know, even if somebody doesn't recognize it, you can see your work, you know, and how great it's become and how much it's developed since you felt like that. And I think, especially in the creative industry, where your work speaks for itself, then, you know, confidence and making sure that you, you know, kind of develop those talents always works in your favor. I think confidence is something that you can get out of, you know, this imposter syndrome, and working hard. I think no one doubts hard work, you know. So I think
I don't think that anybody doubts hard work. You know, at the moment there's a social media hashtag going, you know, the 4 a.m. club or the 5 a.m. club, where people are just waking up extra early, you know, giving their all for the day, and of course they're succeeding. But then how can it be successful without having the anxiety and the feeling of self-worth and self-doubt? Because that's how you want to flip it on its head. Because yes, of course, you know, it can lead to success, but then you don't want to have all of these mental health anxiety issues.
I think you've just got to make a really conscious effort to turn it on its head. So instead of saying to yourself, oh my goodness, I got here by mistake, and I got here from a fluke, I got here because I'm really good at what I do, because this company deserves to have me working for them, and because they need me. You've got to make a really conscious effort to talk yourself out of the imposter syndrome. But
it's
to do
confidence, isn't it?
It's confidence, but you've got to recognise that you feel that way in the first place.
But do you think that confidence, again, going back to class and education, do you think it comes from there?
Oh, absolutely.
I've worked in the city, and let me tell you, you know, I've had girls that are 5-6 years younger than me, English, white, lovely girls. They were my friends, but they just had the confidence. The schools they went to, you know, they would clearly have some sort of classes in, you know, how to speak well, how to sit well. And
Latin.
That's what it's called, Latin. And you kind of, if you compare yourselves to that type of person, you just do feel inadequate.
No, you do, definitely.
Do you think we need these kind of lessons in inner city schools in London to teach these children who are academically bright just how to behave in a workplace and how to speak to people?
I think it's an etiquette thing as well. I mean, it is something that you learn as, I know, just as we say that, we all sit, we pop ourselves up. I think it is an etiquette thing. I think it's something that, you know, does need to happen in inner city schools. I know it's happening. You know, they have talks, they have networking classes. There's, you know, lots of different programs.
Okay, so you do think it is trickling down now more and more?
No, it is trickling down. And I think a lot more younger people of a certain class are actively helping themselves and going out to these things and speaking to people. And there's nothing like saying, you know, putting yourself or your identity aside and not being yourself. It's just being able to adapt to each different environments, you know.
Do you know, that's really important, because again, you know, the angry black women, I've been accused,
we all
viewers have been
accused.
Sometimes you just don't know how to articulate yourself.
Absolutely.
And also, you've got to be clever about it as well, because sometimes
strategy in the fight.
It's all a political mind.
You went to private school. Teach us.
I think even if you're not being an angry black female, and you just, you know, be a bit sassy, it's
Sassy.
almost, yeah, it's almost, you know,
Even that word sassy.
yeah, it's a nice way of saying angry black woman. Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
on my
it's just a nicer way of saying it. And even if you, it's almost like people kind of set you up. And I'm saying this based on my experiences because you know they set you up just so that you can fall into that bait. And you have to be careful. Like when I, for example, when I was in a boarding school, a lot of the times, you know, black girl from London, so people would suddenly change how they were speaking. But the way I would react naturally would be like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm not familiar. And they would be thrown off. And it would obviously turn into comedy. And as a result, you know, people are more open to chatting to you and stuff like that. So I think it's just being smart about it and knowing when to, you know, be yourself and knowing when to adapt to a different environment. And I say adapt because I'm saying do not change who you are for another environment.
No, but you need to be in those inner city schools. Come back from Lagos and teach
and
our
do
kids.
this talk. I know.
Yeah, because they would learn so much from you. Afia, you've got to wrap up now. But again, what kind of advice would you give to somebody, most of our viewers, who are suffering from this? And hallelujah, it's not just you, it's all of us.
Exactly. First of all, believe in yourself. You are where you are for a reason. Validate the reason why you're there and work hard. If you have to work twice as hard, that's okay.
Yeah.
Do that, but know that you're doing amazingly in your career, in your motherhood path, and whatever it is, and believe that you are where you are for a reason.
Oh, that's great. Really, really, really interesting discussion. That's it from me, Juliana Olayinka, and my fantastic guests, Afia Adom and Lape Banjo. Don't forget, guys, Noni's now online wherever you are in the world. Go to www.yangatv.com to check out every single episode. Join me next time for more Noni Chat. Goodbye.